Okay, so this is something that I do, and I don't know if it's something you do, but like, especially for people that I have met more than once, sometimes for strangers, if I'm feeling like really cheeky, you know, if I get the question like, how did you lose your hand? I will just come up with the most random stuff like train, I didn't run fast enough, a shark attack, or just like whatever. And like if I'm in the mood for it. So I'm curious, is that something that you do?
Oh, yeah.
Stomp Kitchen, gluten-free vegan eats, Stomptastic treats.
Oh yeah, like what? What's your best way?
Kids will be like, how do you lose your limbs? And I'm like, I didn't eat my vegetables.
Oh my god! That is so terrifying. It's so good.
Scaring children into healthy lifestyles. You're welcome, parents.
What else? What else do you say?
I mean, it's
That's
whatever.
Kind of the best one.
It's kind of like a fun improv game, right? Like it's just you come up with whatever is your fancy at that particular moment.
Absolutely.
And like you meet a person and you'll like read them and you'll be like, well, what with this person?
Like what, how, yeah, exactly.
What are the buttons I can push here?
Absolutely. So I have this like running joke, like if something happens, like if we talk about a shark attack or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, that's way like 487 that I lost my hand. Like there's all these ways that I've lost my hand. And I guess one year when I was a lot younger, I told this girl in choir that I had hand cancer. And she believed it, so that's a thing. And looking back, I'm like, what was I thinking? And she would tell other people like, okay, so she had hand cancer, she doesn't want to talk about it, don't ask her about it, which was like not a thing.
That's the danger of doing it, right? Like
so,
it might become a story.
Exactly, so at the end of the year, like I got to like come out and be like, yeah, I was born this way, and like just joking, she was like, I felt so evil.
You did the longest con.
I really did. Like just her, like, oh, it was so funny. Sorry, Lorna. So do you have any like best life hacks or neat things that you do that are very like specific to you and your body?
I do a lot of things with my face.
Oh.
Yes, it's
Tell
like,
me more.
I hate prosthetics.
Oh,
like when I was a kid, they like the extremity of the disability is very much tied to how effective prosthetics are.
Makes sense. Yep.
Having an extra arm is convenient when you have another hand to screw it with the janky prosthetic, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like growing up, it was always like, let's try to make the super convoluted prosthetic to help you do X, Y, Z, and I'm just like, no, I'm just gonna do it with my face. So like typing, I do with my face. I have a mouse. I drive with my left arm.
Yeah.
As for like art, it's attaching things to sticks. In longer and longer sticks.
Yeah.
Just so I can get my face as far away from the canvas as possible. So I have a hope and hell of trying to keep perspective and proportions.
Oh, of course, to see it.
Yeah, because when you're holding a brush like this all the time, your perspective is constantly changing. Tying things to sticks, very helpful.
You must have like a very like people who are born without arms and have legs, like to use them to drive and stuff, they're so flexible, so strong in their toes. Their toes are so dexterous or whatever. I have a couple friends missing arms, but like your facial muscles must be so defined and so cool and so strong in like in ways that you would never need to think about, you know? Yeah, you have a very strong tongue. That's so great. If you watch the other episode that we did together, you will get to see some of the painting we've spoken of.
The shenanigans.
The shenanigans. The painting shenanigans.
Yeah, I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about...
Pick my brain.
Yes, about, you know, socio-political issues. Oh. If you're willing to.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, like, it's hard.
Let's go there, shall we?
But yeah, I wanted to talk to you about things like, I don't know, representations of disability in media and what you think can be improved and where you think the current, you know, cultural zeitgeist around like inspiration porn is at, and what are your feelings?
That's a lot to think about.
Absolutely.
So I think when I really got thrown into this whole notion of representation and understanding, I mean, it's been with me my entire life just because I grew up, you know, not seeing people like me in the news and on TV as much. And if I did, it was like, Terry Fox is so inspiring. Yeah. You know, this like white man who like did great work, but like a very specific, palatable version of disability. Since starting YouTube and meeting a lot of people and other creators who have limb difference, who have disability, who are just out there talking about chronic illness. I think I'm in this like beautiful but like bubbly world of like seeing other people doing representation really well and intersectionality and that kind of stuff. So I probably don't have the best perspective because I follow those people and they follow me, and I'm like, we have those conversations.
Weird sounding box, right?
Yeah, and you're like, yay! And like you put it out to the public and people see stuff and it's great, but like, I don't know how much of like the wider world I can necessarily speak to because I didn't find that group before YouTube. I maybe noticed the lack of it in my life versus now there's a lot of it, which is really lovely. And the people that I like to watch and talk to and follow are people that are doing representation very well. It's very authentic.
Very vulnerable though, right? And
Yeah.
it's hard to keep that up when you're constantly putting yourself on the line, and you know, the minute something's on the internet, it's being
on the
released
internet
for
forever.
scrutinized, right? Similar to a point you were mentioning earlier, it's this kind of weird forced advocacy, right? Yeah, it forces you to start having those conversations. I've been following a ton of disability activists recently who talk about like internalized ableism. It's like, why am I looking at this thing that is like so far out of my control, right? It's like, why am I internalizing the consequences for this situation when I'm allowed to take a day off?
Absolutely. Kind of like why I asked you earlier about like talking about like building accessibility. Like, do you feel like you need to become the expert? Same thing for like advocacy and representation on the internet, etc. Like, I think there's the danger of like, well, I am now the spokesperson for all people with limb difference, blah, and you're like, I have to do this really well. In some ways, you do have to like, do your homework and whatever. I've learned so much, like, oh my goodness. That can be, I think, a danger of certain types of representation when it's like, oh, well, I saw a guy with one leg, so now I know their experience. It's like, hang on a second. So yeah, there's tons of different like nuance and things to consider with that conversation.
And you've been very, you know, active in political spaces. I've seen you at GSA rallies and the like.
Yeah, I got to host this year's GSA rally. That was amazing. I think I was like born with this like social justice streak in me that I just was born with. And if I see an injustice, I just can't not do something.
Yeah.
You know? And so that's been my entire life. Since I was little, I would stick up for people. So that's carried on into my adult life, like the work I've done with queer folks on campus and other jobs that I've had. And now talking about like limb difference in the disability sphere, it's like, I don't know, another cool way that I get to
make a difference and get the word out.
Yeah, like do a bit more of that stuff that kind of comes a bit more naturally to me, I think. Like, you know, I met this guy at the airport. This guy was, he was talking to me about like transportation or something, or trying to get a cab. And he was just kind of mumbling and said something about like, oh, you know, cab drivers, you can't understand like a word that they say anyway. And I just looked at him and I was like, are you a little bit racist? And he was just like, no, I was like, because that wasn't cool. Who says that shit? Like, I could have been punched. I didn't know this dude, but like, I also think because I have a lot of privilege in so many arenas of my life, I'm able to take those risks. Like, I'm not a person of color. I am straight passing. I have a lot of able-bodied privilege too. I'm like, well, I got nothing to lose because like, they're gonna listen to me anyway. So it's an interesting balance to play.
Having different aspects of privilege that allow you to put yourself on the line in some respects. I'm always measuring things about my likelihood of getting punched in the face. And there are some things it's like, once I start, I won't stop. So it's
oh, nice.
Like,
so we each have that like internal fire under our butts.
Yeah.
Same question back to you around representation and stuff. What are kinds of things and trends that you're noticing and liking, or noticing and not liking? Things that are problematic or good?
Trends in media, I guess. We've always had this weird inspiration porn aspect of like people being lauded for you know, adjusting to their everyday, and there's a lot to be said against venerating people for operating normally, because it creates a ton of weird expectations around disability, like the entire notion that, oh, the only disability is a bad attitude, right?
No
like,
doubt,
it's so diminishing. You can't good attitude your way up a flight of stairs.
No, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's a pragmatism that has to be weighed with the attitudes that we have surrounding these conversations. If you're willing to talk about it and you're like, oh, they're so brave or they're so, you know, extraordinary for adapting, it's like, yeah, but this could all be a lot easier if we had, you know, policies in place to help people with disabilities.
That's very true.
Or if our designs were more inclusive.
And if our cultural narrative around disability wasn't inherently flawed, like as disability means lacking, means bad,
Value
like
lost,
all
yeah.
of these things. Exactly, like, oh, your life must be so sad. So it's all those things, like the cultural attitudes and narratives around disability that need to change, and then of course policies and spaces, etc. Because like saying to, you know, a blind person like, oh, good for you for going outside today. It's like, are you kidding? Like I go to school, I'm doing this all the time. It's like the assumption that like, if I were blind, I would just stay inside and my life would be horrible. Like, excuse you? Like, what?
And it's this aspect of people's cognition where they fundamentally underestimate humans' ability to adapt. Right?
Absolutely.
And their own willingness to adapt. So there's this
That's
weird
true.
thing that happens with empathy where they're like, I'm gonna imagine myself in your situation. And they're picturing like losing their limb like 5 minutes from now, right? And they're like, I could never possibly in my life ever adjust to this.
I would kill myself.
Oh, I've heard that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. People
Yeah.
have said that to my face. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're just telling me I should
right
kill myself?
here.
Yeah, like go away. Like just
Yeah.
go away. Yeah, that's if there's one thing I would ask that people change or consider in their reaction is never tell someone that like you would kill yourself if you were missing a limb or all of your limbs. Like that is the absolute worst thing I think you can say to someone.
And it's weird because they pitch it like it's a compliment.
Yes!
In the weirdest way.
Thank you.
It's so hard to negotiate, and like there's so much behind that cognition that it's like, where do you even begin to try and start dismantling that? And it's not something you could do in like a colloquial 5-minute conversation. You know,
wish
it's
you
like,
can, but you can't. You wish you could just smack them with your stomach and they'd be like, oh, I get it now. Like, oh, just choked on my own spit.
You're
Smarten up. Obviously, we could talk about this forever. Like, there's so many things. So we're gonna do this again. I think we have to do another interview, maybe 5 more. I don't know. Maybe start a podcast.
Start a podcast, yeah.
Comment down below if you have questions for Daniel, for me, for things that you want to hear us talk about.
I think we're both remarkably honest and vulnerable.
Absolutely, yeah.
Nothing's off the table, I don't think.
Poops to stumps to sexuality to taboo topics. That's another thing we should talk about for next time.
Fetishes. Yes!
Okay. I think we figured out like the key question for our next one, because like, holy crap, there's so much fetishization.
Oh my god.
Thank you so much for being here.
No problem.
This
Thanks
was
for having me.
Absolutely. It was so good. I can't wait to do it again. Where can we find you?
I'm on Instagram at p.paradox.
I'll link it down below. Sweet. Okay, well, thank you so much. And
Thanks for having me.
yeah, we'll see you next time on Stump Kitchen.
Have a good one.
Stump Kitchen, gluten-free vegan eats stumptastic treats.
Actually, oh, Daniel did a really awesome piece, one of my pictures I had on my Instagram, and I got the print. I got to keep the print, and I'm getting it.
Oh no, that's the original.
Or pardon me, I got the original. I don't know how to call art. I got the original, which was so lovely, and I'm currently framing it right now to put in our house and look at every day because it's beautiful.
I'll have to do an oil painting of you one day.
I would like that very much. That would be
It'll
great.
happen.
I will sit for you, and it will be lovely.